Hello people, it's a very hot day today. Basically, I'm just showcasing so a few changes as I showed in my previous video, the PID change. So now the PID has changed for, I've only changed it for a few processes. I didn't really want to change it for the auto throttle. I think she's behaving fine, and I didn't want to change it for the wing leveler. She's behaving fine. It was just the pitch leveler and the autopilot vertical speed that I really needed to change it for, and wow, is now much more stable for sure. So basically massive changes have happened to the autopilot. So real world, whenever you want to turn on the autopilot, you need the plane somewhat level. So basically right now what I'm doing now, you wouldn't want to turn the autopilot on. Planes at an angle, planes climbing. If the autopilot turns on, it usually will go straight to 0, so it will reset itself, because if you look at all of these settings here, they're all at 0. So what's the autopilot going to do? Put the plane to 0. Now if you've done that on our previous versions of the plane, you will know that the plane will do what it's supposed to do. Basically it will dive, and when it dives, because of course you have your auto throttle, and your auto throttle right now is in a climb. You can see that we're at like 92 just to maintain that climb, okay? And that's because we actually have the flaps off. So just turn those flaps off, and now you'll see that the auto throttle adjusts because we're going over the speed. But here's the thing: if the plane suddenly dives, that's 85% of your thrust now pointing you downwards. So yes, the plane will, you may have set the plane to climb to descend to -5, but if when the autopilot turns on, but when it does that, the autopilot is not going to have enough time to react to the speed change, and so your plane is going to go past -5. So real world, they have this system when the autopilot turns on that will slowly lower the nose to the level stage, okay? And so we didn't have that, so basically, as I said, the plane would dive. Now we do. So I'm going to basically just showcase that quickly. If you press, make sure you're in, you can see right now that I am in request mode, okay? Make sure you're in request mode before you do this, so that when you do move your mouse, if you're in mouse mode, you don't just, of course, yeet your plane. And then press gently the autopilot mode. It will level the wings and it will pitch the plane to 0, okay? And it will try and maintain 0 pitch. And from this stage, you can now go and put on what you want. So I usually advise put the altitude you want. If you're not using the vertical speed, okay, put the altitude you want, turn that on. When that's gone 3000, turn that on, okay? And now you can see the plane will go and react to reach 3000, okay? It may overshoot a bit, that's just because the thrust change is happening, but it will try and maintain 3000 as close as it can. And there it is, autopilot is practically done. You can basically sit down and leave her to fly. Of course, if you click your head in, I'm going to send my plane to 0 heading. My plane should now go and follow the 0 heading. I've tried to make it follow the shortest course, and if it still doesn't, I will of course retweak that. But now it should follow the shortest course. I'm doing all of this ahead of my extended autopilot, which I want to do for the A321 release. I want to do the extended autopilot system that of course you lovely people have paid for, some of you, which is, you know, the ILS landing and stuff, and those are very, very reliant on a stable autopilot system, okay? So the plane will find its 0 heading now, and the plane is trying to maintain 3000. When we get there, of course, because load factor changes when you're on the turn, when we do level our wing, the plane will overshoot slightly. That's just normal. Okay, if you go on X-plane and you do the same, it will overshoot, but it will correct itself. As you can see, now it's going back to 3000, okay? Now the lovely thing about the plane fly-by-wire system is you just don't have to do anything. Of course, we needed a trim of 0.118 because our plane's, of course, just slightly out of trim, but it's trimmed itself because it's auto trim. This is fly-by-wire, the beauty of Airbus. And so yeah, we're done. Basically, we don't touch this at all unless the plane tries to kill itself. you leave it, and basically it's maintaining zero heading lovely. It's keeping the plane on course. It feels smooth. Now there are other things to take note, like real world. If you're going too fast, the autopilot will start to, you may start to see the plane just start bumping up and down a bit. It depends on how far. I've tuned it at the moment so that it will be pretty stable at 500, being that it's stable at the lower speeds but stable at the upper speeds. Of course, generally, because this is proper physics, there's a plethora of many things that may not take into account. So the weight of the plane, when you reach, if you do manage to reach 42,000 with this weight, it may not be able to take account of that smaller air density, and so you might have things where you might have to take over from the autopilot if it does mess up. But other than that, yeah, the system is stable. She is flying very, very nicely, and of course, in the extended autopilot version, I will be putting options for your bank limit, setting the manual bank limits in. At the moment, she chooses the bank angle she wants to do based on speed, which is the real world they use on the plane. So the equation is whatever the speed is divided by 10 plus 7, if I remember correctly, and that will give you the banking angle. And usually you would limit your bank angle for any plane to 30. I limited this to 25 so it doesn't go over the bank angle limit at all of -33. And my pitch limit, of course, is -20 and 10 down. In the extended autopilot version, you'll be able to adjust all of those yourself at your peril, of course, and you'll be able to adjust the vertical speed limit. So on this plane, we have the limit of 3,000 up and I think -2,000 down, like real world. But you can of course adjust those like they can real world. The extended autopilot is literally basically more so showcasing the ILS feature, being able to navigate a predetermined flight path with nav. So one airport to another will just basically just be using heading and vertical speed and altitude to control that, and also the auto throttle if there are speed restrictions for that certain route. Okay, so if maybe you have to get to waypoint at Aeria, it will use the auto throttle and tell auto throttle, oh, you need to follow my speed limit of 200, and it will just set that to the value, and do that. So that's basically it. This is all just ahead of grids, because I expect when grids comes, then autopilot will be in very much use. Of course, if you're testing in a flight, please make sure you've tested beforehand, make sure that your person has installed it well. But yeah, it's generally very easy and very reliable now, which is amazing. So we are nearly at the altitude, and we're going to continue. I'm going to aim to wait till it's at 36,000. So right now I'm going to pause the mic, and we'll see if we get there before we go over the pseudo front, we call it, my fake front area. Also, I actually wanted to talk about something. If you look at our speed, you will notice our speed is not going any higher than 250, or is struggling to. Now, this is very important. Our plane is MTOW weight, and so as you can see, there's not a lot of lift for our plane at this altitude when we reach 36,000. So we will see the speed we've set eventually somewhat creep in when we level out, but as we're in the climb, because the plane is creating a bit more drag when it is lift at its weight at this height because of the air density, there's not a lot of thrust because thrust is also reliant on air density. You can see that the plane speed isn't that high. Okay, Now that we're starting to level out at this 36,000, you'll be able to see the speed start to creep in just a bit more. She's now going to decline and maintain, of course, 36,000. She's now starting to go there. You can see her speed is now starting to pick itself up. It's about to reach the 300 knots margin, and basically when it levels out around, it will be roughly around, I don't know, maybe 4 pitch at most. When she levels out, the speed will reach hopefully 400 knots. You can also reach 500, I think, at this altitude, most likely. I haven't tested myself again because I haven't had much flying experience with the plane at this type of altitude. You can now slowly just see a bit the oscillation I was talking about. At high speed there is a bit of oscillation, but it won't be too disruptive. Of course, the oscillation will get a lot more high at the altitude, at the higher altitudes, and that's just because of weight. Because as I talked to you about air density, this air density is just enough for us right now to maintain lift. Okay, we're at 400 knots now, as you can see. This is just enough for us to maintain lift at our weight. We are very, very heavy for 36,000. By the time you've come off the ground to here, you wouldn't be weighing I think our weight right now is 2,270 tons, which is very high. By now you shouldn't have been at that weight, but hey, we ride. As you can see, it's pretty light. If I try to climb up to anywhere like 42,000 or whatever, you'll slowly see the plane not able to do that. 50,000, you're definitely stretching it, it will drop. And yeah, good luck getting up to 60,000. I don't think you'll even be able to get up to 50,000, you'd probably die. But I do know some people will try and call me out on that bet. But here we go, we are basically at 36,000, and plane is trying to maintain the zero heading as close as it can. It is at zero heading, but what you won't know is that because of how Riblot's rounding is, it just rounds anything that's above 0. I think it's anything above 0.4 or so, it will just round it to 1. So it's technically at zero heading, it's just rounded up to 1. Okay, so she's maintaining well. Of course, we got the intermittent turbulence because of our weight, but she's maintained well. Let's just test her high speed turning ability. I really hope we don't die. We will lose lift, as I say, because we are very heavy at this. Altitude, but we shouldn't lose too much. Okay. So there she goes. She's gonna make the full circle turn. Plane engines have come on. Just notice that our vertical speed is starting to drop, maintaining the vertical speed. So yeah, it basically does its job, which is perfect. We're making the full circle because we might head back here, but I won't head back here on the video because I need my arrows to test, and I'm going to publish this fix, which is the flare mode change, the autopilot update, and the fly-by-wire, just minor revision on the PID. Guys, PID controllers, beautiful work of art. Really love them. What they can open for aviation, for trains, for buses, even for boats. Guys, if you're not using a PID controller in your life, I don't know what you're doing. So once this turns to 180 degrees, I will end the video. I do thank you guys for those people that do watch my videos a lot. I hope this doesn't make you jealous, but inspires you, because you're all talented and you will all be able to do this. Me, myself, I was once like some of you, just looking at people and wondering, oh, how does he do this, how does he do it? Really, the best advice I can advise you to do is look at someone's work and be inspired, but then try and do it yourself. There's no point looking at someone and thinking, how does he do this, I wish. Make your wish come true. That's what I had to do. When I started the yeasting, for example, I knew that at the time I couldn't code. I could barely model planes. I wasn't in the plane section. I was modeling for maybe 2 months at the time, but that was cartoon stuff, like, because I was working on my cartoon game. Some of you may have known my old Toonverse project. I was working on that, so when I came into planes, it was initially I wanted to make an airline. And I found a nice friend who was more experienced with me more experienced than me, sorry, at plane modeling. And so we started an alliance. We were going to work on this airline. Eventually turned into a tech, into basically Ethan, as you know, because at that point he was like, why don't we as well make this airline but make our planes and sell this to people and try and change aviation. And along the way we picked up our big buddy Awis, and ever since he's been instrumental. And I'll be honest, Awis is a very, very, very big in person in Eason. Some of you may not know him. You should know him. He's literally, if there's anyone I'd say that has been instrumental to Eason's success, other than my amazing developers and my amazing customer affairs team, I'd say Awis for sure. Because there have been things where I've been busy or something, and Awis just kept the group running. And he's done it with basically little to no complaints. I've never had bad word from Airbus, never had complaints. And when you look at like the road aviation, of course it's not road aviation has its bad sides, but it has a lot of good sides. And there have been a lot of groups, to say, in road aviation trying to do tech and stuff, and some have folded, some have not stayed for long. But I think the reason that Eason has been here for long and will aim to finish all of its planes for all our customers before we maybe decide to either change shortly to another territory. As I said, I did mention to people, some people know we may be looking at road trains. But the reason Eason's been here for so long is just because we have very, very good people who are dedicated, who love what they're doing, and love to help. And as I said, Airbus has been instrumental to this type of thing. And as I did say when I was talking about to you about getting stuck in and get learning, when I started at Eason, I realized that I would need to hire a lot of people to do a lot of things. And when there's a lot of people, yes, a lot of people means sometimes work can be done very quickly, and work can be done in somewhat way, depending on how you do it, efficiently. Other times, especially from how I've seen it in road aviation, it just might just be my experience, sometimes just a lot of people doesn't always work, and there is no backup or insurance if suddenly someone you've got on a project, for example, is working on it, and then suddenly goes AWOL, just disappears. Because then if you've got like all these clients who are relying on that person's plane or that person's systems, and they've suddenly gone, and you don't have the experience to take over and do that, and you've done for some reason pre-orders. You should never do pre-orders if you have other people, in my opinion, working on the thing till it's out, because you never have any security. If that person suddenly disappears, you don't have any security there. And so when I was doing Easton, I said to myself, I'm going to have to do all of these because I know I'm going to be there for the long run, because I know the type of person I am, and I know what I need Roblox in one sense for. So it wouldn't be in my best interest to come here, take everyone's money and leave. And so we do take time indeed to work on our systems. People would have known this because we do experimental systems. So, you know, when we're fighting Roblox, there is always that type of thing where you may see one or two bug fixes, this and that. Planes may not be out as fast as you may have assumed. But yeah, when we, like now, we're from what we were last year to what we are now, the difference is astonishing. And as we go, our planes become more stable. This is going to be most likely the most stable update in terms of last update and this update combined will be the most stable update, because a lot of the issues and a lot of refinements have happened, and the plane, from everyone that has flown it, my students, they find it so easy compared to the previous versions. That's how it should be. This is an Airbus, so it should be very, very easy. We admit, of course, that we're very young in terms of, because Ethan's only been here a year now, nearly a year. We started in 2018 of August, no, September. Yeah, we released in September. I remember we released in September, but we were finishing off our first A350 around August. So we're basically maybe a year and a half, nearly 2 now, old. So maybe a year and, no, not a year and a half, a year and 3/4 now old. So we're relatively young with the technology we're doing. But yeah, you'll see a lot of amazing tech from us, and we hope when we do leave aviation, we've done at least a bit of impact on it, even if it's small. Just something that gives people renown, confidence that, oh, there's something you can achieve with Roblox, and seeing positive people's reactions to stuff we do. It's always rewarding. It's more rewarding, as I say. If I really was here for any money or something, I would have most likely have left by now, to be honest. The prices we charge, example, I know people say it's expensive. It depends on the person, but yeah, the prices we charge is just because of you get a decent support network, a stable. Usually we'll be getting more updates. We don't just give you a plane and be like, yeah, be gone. If it breaks, it breaks. Even when our warranty are out, we do make sure that we will, like the A350 is out of warranty, for example, but I always love to work on bug fixes because I like to fly my plane. That's why, as I say, I'm only here because I'm working on this in sense for my internship at Airbus, for Airbus, as well as I like aviation. I'm motivated for aviation, and I love doing challenges that basically make people enjoy something. I've always dedicated myself as a developer to doing things that impress people, and more so impress myself, because when I'm flying my planes for the first time, I'm like, when I flew the A350 on the nuclear for the first time, I'm like, wow, did I really do this? Did I really do this? And I love flying my plane. Sometimes you'll catch me in my test place just flying about, especially when all the stuff like the fuel comes out. Yeah, you will be seeing me in my test place just messing about. I really enjoy that. And when AirX comes out, as I say, I'm working on that, a really realistic simulator as well. You see me there as well. So anyway, I don't know what this turned into. It was supposed to be an autopilot that showcased in the update, but it's turned into a yes, talk about Eastern history side of thing. Let's talk about motivation side of thing. But yes, anyway, our plane, as you've seen through that talk, has just been flying myself. I haven't done nothing, so it shows the autopilot is very stable, and that's perfect. So thank you for watching, and catch you next time. I hope my volume was loud this time. It's probably very loud, but I hope it was. And see you later in the next video.